I'm Ruby, and I'm 26 years old. 3 days ago, my alcoholic father showed up at my door with my drug-addicted stepmother, demanding I pay him back for every penny he supposedly spent raising me. He dragged me to the bank, holding my arm tight enough to bruise, threatening to destroy everything I'd built if I didn't hand over the cash. But here's the thing about people who underestimate you. They never see the trap until it's already closed around them. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below, and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt abandoned by the people who were supposed to protect you. Because what happened next at that bank? It changed everything. Let me take you back to where this nightmare really began, to the day I learned that sometimes the people who create you are the same ones who try to destroy you. And sometimes, the only way to survive is to become stronger than they ever imagined possible. I was 10 years old when my mother died from cancer. One morning she was braiding my hair for school, her fingers gentle and sure, humming that song she always hummed. 3 months later, I stood in a black dress that was too big for me, watching them lower her casket into the ground. Dad held my hand that day, and I thought we'd face everything together. I was wrong about a lot of things back then. After the funeral, Dad started drinking. Not just a beer with dinner. I'm talking about the kind of drinking that turns a parent into a ghost. He'd come home from his job at the car dealership reeking of whiskey, stumble through the front door, and collapse on the couch with a bottle. Some nights he'd cry about Mom. Most nights he just stared at the TV until he passed out. The food ran out first. Our pantry went from Mom's carefully organized shelves to 3 cans of soup and a box of stale crackers. When I asked Dad for grocery money, he'd mumble something about getting it tomorrow. Tomorrow, it never came. I learned to eat breakfast and lunch at school like my life depended on it, because it did. The lunch lady started giving me extra portions. I think she knew. Then the bills stopped getting paid. The electricity got shut off twice that first year. I did homework by candlelight, telling myself it was romantic like in the movies. The water almost got turned off, but Dad stumbled to the utility office at the last minute. I suspect he sold Mom's jewelry, though he never admitted it. My clothes fell apart and Dad never noticed. The knees of my jeans developed holes that kept growing. My shoes had soles that flapped when I walked. Mrs. Patterson from church brought me a bag of donations one Sunday, looking directly at me. I wanted to be embarrassed, but I was too grateful. School became my sanctuary, not because I loved learning, but because it was warm, there was food, and adults actually paid attention to me. My teacher kept granola bars in her desk, slipping me one every Friday afternoon. At home, Dad existed in a fog. Some mornings I'd find him passed out on the kitchen floor. I'd put a blanket over him and get myself ready for school. By the time I turned 11, I'd mastered the art of invisibility. I kept my problems to myself, smiled when adults asked how I was doing, and never let anyone see how desperately lonely I felt. I thought Dad just needed time to grieve. I thought eventually he'd remember he had a daughter who needed him. But Dad was drowning, and he'd forgotten how to swim. When I turned 15, Dad brought home his solution to our problems. Her name was Karen, and she came with bleached blonde hair, a cigarette habit, and absolutely zero interest in being anyone's mother figure. "Ruby, meet Karen," Dad announced one Tuesday evening. "She's going to be staying with us." Karen looked me up and down like she was evaluating livestock. "So you're the kid. Steve told me you were pretty self-sufficient." Self-sufficient, that was Dad's way of saying he'd been neglecting me for 5 years. Karen didn't improve our situation, she just made it more complicated. She'd buy groceries, then organize them in ways that made it clear what I wasn't allowed to touch. "Those yogurts are for Steve and me," she'd say. "There's peanut butter in the cabinet if you're hungry." She'd cook dinner for herself and Dad, filling the house with smells that made my stomach growl, then act surprised when I appeared. The mental games were exhausting. She'd hide snacks in her bedroom, lock away certain foods, and create this atmosphere where I felt like I was stealing if I took so much as an apple. I started working more. Dog walking, babysitting, house cleaning. I wasn't just earning money. I was earning time away from home, where I didn't have to watch Karen play house with my father, while treating me like an unwanted roommate. The breaking point came 6 months after Karen moved in. I'd been saving money for new school shoes. After a few months of work, I'd finally saved $53 in a small wooden box I kept hidden under my bed. That Thursday afternoon, I came home planning to count my money one more time. But when I reached under my bed, the box was gone. I found Karen in the living room, painting her nails, wearing a brand new jacket with tags still on it. "Nice jacket," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Thanks. Steve said I deserved something pretty." She didn't even look up. "Where did you find the money for it?" That's when she finally met my eyes, and I saw something that made my blood run cold. She was enjoying this. "I have no idea what you're talking about, sweetie." "My money. From my jewelry box. $53. Karen's face transformed into innocent confusion that was so fake it was almost impressive. "Ruby, honey, I think you might be confused. I know you took it. That was my money. I worked for months." "Prove it," she said with a smirk that made me want to scream. That's when Dad stumbled through the front door. He took one look at us and immediately went into damage control mode, but he was looking at me like I was the problem. "Your daughter is accusing me of stealing," Karen said, and I swear she managed to make herself tear up on command. Dad's face darkened. "Ruby, apologize to Karen right now. She stole my money, Dad. $53 I saved for shoes." "That's enough. Karen has been nothing but good to us, and this is how you treat her?" I stared at him in disbelief. "You're right. The world doesn't revolve around me. I learned that when Mom died and you decided alcohol was more important than your daughter. I learned it when I had to raise myself. And I'm learning it now, watching you choose your girlfriend over your own child." The silence that followed was deafening. "Get out," Dad said quietly. "What?" I said, "Get out. Pack your things and get out of my house." Karen didn't even try to hide her satisfaction. I packed everything I owned into 3 garbage bags. Dad sat in the living room drinking while Karen watched me carry my entire existence down the stairs. Neither of them said a word. Walking out that front door felt surreal, but honestly, the scariest part wasn't being homeless. It was the relief I felt. Mrs. Morrison, who'd been paying me to babysit her 3 kids, didn't hesitate when I called. "Come over right now. We'll figure this out." She lived in a small house with Emma, Joshua, and baby Sarah. Her husband had left when Sarah was born, and she was working double shifts at the diner. "The guest room is yours," she said simply. "In exchange, you'll watch the kids full-time and help around the house. You'll have a roof over your head and food in your stomach." It wasn't charity. It was a business arrangement. Living with the Morrison family was the first time in years I felt like I was part of something normal. We had dinner together every night. Mrs. Morrison asked about my day, actually listened. The kids accepted me as part of their routine, and baby Sarah would light up when she saw me in the mornings. I finished my junior year of high school there, maintaining my grades despite everything. Mrs. Morrison made sure I had lunch money and school supplies, never making me feel like I owed her anything beyond the childcare we'd agreed on. Senior year, I applied to colleges with Mrs. Morrison's help. The local state university offered me a full academic scholarship. Mrs. Morrison cried when I showed her the acceptance letter. "I'm so proud of you," she said. Those were words I'd been waiting to hear from a parent figure for most of my life. College was challenging but manageable. I studied business administration, kept babysitting for extra money, and during my sophomore year, I saved enough to buy a used Honda Civic. Having my own transportation felt like the ultimate freedom. That car represented everything I'd built for myself: independence, hard work, and the possibility of a future beyond the limitations of my childhood. After graduation at 21, I started planning my escape. When I heard Dad had been fired from his latest job for showing up drunk again, asking people for money downtown, I knew I needed to get out before his problems became my problems again. Children's Hospital in Clayton offered me an entry-level position in their patient services department. I didn't hesitate. The hardest part was leaving the Morrisons, but Mrs. Morrison hugged me tight. "You'll always have a home here," she told me. "And Ruby, your father's mistakes don't define you. You've proven that." I drove to Clayton on a Sunday morning, windows down, feeling like I was shedding an old skin. By age 24, I was living the life I dreamed about during those hungry nights in Dad's house. I had a corner office at Children's Hospital, a master's degree in healthcare administration, and a salary that let me sleep peacefully. The promotion, being to patient services director, had come with significant responsibility. I was overseeing a team of 12 people, implementing systems that actually helped families navigate healthcare. For the first time in my life, I felt genuinely proud. My apartment had turned into a real home, furniture that matched, artwork on the walls, a kitchen stocked with food I'd bought because I wanted it. The best part was the peace. No walking on eggshells, no wondering if someone was going to steal from me, just quiet, stable, predictable peace. Then Mrs. Morrison called one evening while I was making dinner. "Ruby, honey, I got a strange call today. A man asking about you, wanting to know where you were working now." My blood went cold. "What kind of man?" "He said he was your father. He seemed, well, he didn't sound good," slurring his words. "He knew about your job at the hospital. He mentioned you being some kind of director now." After 5 years of silence, Dad was suddenly interested in my whereabouts. The phone call came 3 days later. Unknown number. "Ruby, is that you, sweetheart?" Dad's voice was exactly as I remembered. Rough, slurred, with that tone alcoholics use when they're trying to sound sober and failing. The word sweetheart made my skin crawl. "What do you want, Dad? Can't a father just want to see his daughter?" "I'm real proud of what you've accomplished. I'm busy. I have a job to get to." "That's what I wanted to talk about, actually. This job of yours. Director at a fancy hospital, making good money. We need to talk face to face. It's important. Because family is family, and there are things we need to discuss. Things about what you owe." "What I owe? I don't owe you anything. That's not how I see it. I fed you, clothed you, put a roof over your head for 16 years. That wasn't free." I hung up on him, hands shaking. Dad didn't call again for 2 weeks, and I started to hope maybe he'd given up. I should have known better. The first sign of trouble came when my elderly neighbor, Mrs. Chen, was waiting by my apartment door looking concerned. "Ruby, dear, there was a man here earlier asking about you." "2 people, actually. They didn't seem right." "What did they look like?" "An older man, probably in his 50s, very thin, and a woman with bleached hair. They smelled like alcohol, and the woman seemed unwell, agitated." Dad and Karen. My childhood trauma literally showing up at my doorstep. I got my answer the next evening when I came home to find them sitting on the steps outside my building. Dad looked worse than I'd imagined. Gaunt, yellowed skin, clothes hanging off his frame. Karen looked like she'd aged 20 years, her face hollow and twitchy in a way that screamed drug use. "There's our successful daughter," Dad said, standing up unsteadily. "Don't you look fancy in your business clothes?" I stopped about 10 feet away. "You need to leave." "Now. That's no way to treat family," Karen chimed in. "We came all this way just to see you." I said, "Leave now." Dad's fake friendliness evaporated. "We're not going anywhere until we get what we came for. 16 years of food, shelter, clothes. You think that was free? You're making good money now. Time to pay back the family that made it all possible." I couldn't help laughing. "Dad, you literally threw me out with garbage bags when I was 16. I've made it this far despite you, not because of you." Karen stepped forward, movements jerky. "You think you're so much better than us now, don't you?" "Here's what's going to happen," Dad said, voice dropping to a threatening whisper. "You're going to come with us to the bank right now. You're going to withdraw money, enough to cover what we spent raising you. And you're going to do it with a smile. And if I refuse?" Dad looked around at the nice building, the expensive cars, the respectable neighborhood. "Be a shame if your colleagues at that fancy hospital found out about your family situation. Might make them wonder what kind of person they really hired." Karen nodded eagerly. "We know where you work. We know your routine. We're not going anywhere until you pay up." I looked at these 2 people and realized something. They thought they were dealing with the same scared teenager they'd kicked out years ago. They had no idea who I'd become. "Fine," I said quietly. "Let's go to the bank." Dad's face broke into a triumphant grin. They had no idea they were about to walk into their own trap. The First National Bank was 3 blocks from my apartment. Dad kept a grip on my elbow, not tight enough to look like force to observers, but firm enough to make his point. Karen walked on my other side, muttering about how I should be grateful. My mind was racing, but I had something they didn't expect. A plan. Working in healthcare administration had taught me about emergency protocols. Sometimes the best way to handle a crisis is to appear to comply while actually taking control. "Remember," Dad hissed as we reached the entrance. "Nothing dramatic. Just a simple withdrawal." "Of course," I said. Family helping family, right? The bank was busy with the after-work crowd. Perfect. More witnesses, more cameras, more documentation. Dad and Karen followed me to the customer service area, where a young man in a navy suit greeted us. Good evening. How can I help you today? I need to make a large withdrawal, I said clearly. But first, I need to speak with the manager about some security concerns. The banker's expression shifted. Security concerns? This was it. Yes, I'm being coerced into this transaction. I'm here under duress. The words hung in the air for exactly 2 seconds before everything changed. The banker's smile vanished, replaced by immediate alertness. His hand moved towards something under his desk. I see. Please have a seat right here while I get someone to assist you. Dad's face went from confusion to rage. Ruby, what the hell do you think you're doing? Sir, please keep your voice down, the banker said firmly. I need you to remain calm. Sort what out? Karen's voice was getting shrill. She's just withdrawing her own money to help her family. But it was too late. Security guards were positioning themselves. The bank's emergency protocols had been activated. Ma'am? The banker said to me quietly, are you in immediate danger? I was threatened and forced to come here against my will. These people are trying to coerce me into giving them money. That's when Dad completely lost it. Coerce? You ungrateful little brat. I'm your father. After everything I did for you, this is how you repay me? The security guards started moving closer. Sir, I need you to lower your voice and step back. Don't tell me what to do. This is between me and my daughter. She owes me money and she's going to pay it. Karen started screaming. She's trying to humiliate us. We're her family. She has to help us. Every word was being recorded, every threat documented, every unhinged outburst preserved. Dad and Karen were creating an ironclad case against themselves. Ma'am, please come with me, another bank employee said, gently guiding me toward a secure office. We're going to call the police. As I was led away, I could hear Dad's voice getting louder, more desperate. Ruby, you can't do this to family. I made you. Everything you have is because of me. The police arrived within minutes. Through the glass walls, I watched Dad pacing and pointing, his voice loud enough to carry. Karen had progressed to what appeared to be a full panic attack. When the paramedics arrived, she started babbling about how I was destroying the family. The bank manager sat across from me, taking my statement. The entire incident was recorded by our security system. Multiple cameras, clear audio. If you decide to press charges, you'll have very solid evidence. A police officer introduced himself as Detective Martinez. Miss Thompson, what happened here today constitutes attempted coercion and possibly extortion. Are you interested in filing charges? Yes, I said without hesitation. I want them to stay away from me permanently. Based on what I've seen today, I think we can make that happen. Through the glass, I watched Dad being placed in handcuffs. He was still talking, still trying to explain that this was all a misunderstanding. Karen was being loaded onto a stretcher, still rambling about family loyalty. As I watched my father being led away in handcuffs, I felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. Not sadness, not guilt, just pure relief. The scared little girl inside me who'd been waiting for Daddy to come back was finally free to stop waiting. 5 years later, my life looks nothing like what I'd planned and everything like what I'd needed. After Dad and Karen's pathetic attempt, I moved to a gated community with 24-hour security. But more importantly, I transformed that townhouse into something meaningful. I became a foster parent. The spare bedroom became home for children who needed exactly what I'd never had. A stable home with someone who understood what it felt like to be abandoned. First came Sophia, a 7-year-old girl who'd just lost both parents in a car accident. She was tiny, curled up in a hospital bed, dark hair framing huge brown eyes that held too much sadness. Hi, Sophia, I said, sitting beside her. My name is Ruby. I work here at the hospital, and I'd like to talk with you about coming to stay at my house for a while. She studied my face, trying to figure out if I was safe. I know this is scary. When I was 10, my mom died, and I didn't know what was going to happen to me either. It's okay to be afraid. Her eyes widened. Your mom died too? Yes, and it was the scariest thing that had ever happened to me. But I learned that even when terrible things happen, there are still people who I want to help. I'd like to be one of those people for you. Where would I sleep? I have a whole room just for you, with a window that looks out at a garden and bookshelves where you can put your favorite stories. She held up a well-worn stuffed rabbit. Can I bring Bunny? Of course. Bunny is welcome too. That first night was rough. Sophia cried herself to sleep, calling for her parents. I sat outside her room, listening to her sob, remembering my own grief. But slowly, day by day, we built a routine. Breakfast together, quiet evenings where we read books. I taught her how to braid her hair, just like Mom had taught me. 3 months later, Sophia's grandmother in Oregon was approved to take custody. Saying goodbye was one of the hardest things I'd ever done. Will you visit me? Sophia asked as we packed. Whenever you want me to. And you'll always be my first foster daughter, no matter where you live. After Sophia left, my townhouse felt too quiet. But within a week, another placement came. A teenage boy who needed somewhere to stay while he finished high school. Then came twin girls whose mother was in rehab. Then a baby whose teenage parents needed support. My house became a revolving door of children who needed temporary safety, stability, and someone who understood that broken didn't mean unrepairable. Each placement taught me something new about resilience, about the difference one stable adult can make in a child's life. Dad never contacted me again after violating the restraining order. I heard through Mrs. Morrison that he'd been arrested twice more for public intoxication and petty theft. Karen had moved on to another relationship. They'd both faded into the irrelevance they deserved. But their legacy lived on in every child who slept safely in my guest room, every teenager who graduated high school from my address, every baby who took their first steps in my living room. Dad had taught me what abandonment felt like, and I'd used that knowledge to make sure other kids never had to feel that alone. I'd thought success meant corner offices and financial security, but real success, I learned, was measured in bedtime stories, homework help, and teaching kids that they deserved to be protected. The scared little girl who'd raised herself in an alcoholic's house had become the safe adult she'd always wished for. Some people would call that poetic justice. I just call it life coming full circle. If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to cut toxic family members out of your life? How did you rebuild? And don't forget to subscribe for more stories of people who refuse to let their past define their future. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying those who hurt you. It's building something beautiful from the ashes of what tried to destroy you. Hit that subscribe button, because next week, I'm sharing the story of the teenage boy who showed up at my door with nothing but a garbage bag and a guitar, and how music saved both our lives.